The Quiet Coup.
That was me in 2016, the year of my political awakening. I was touring with the Bernie Sanders campaign, creating media to help his grassroots movement grow. At that time, I knew very little about socialism, even less about democratic socialism. As it turned out, I wasn't the only one. So my Bernie bros, how do we redistribute organization without expanding the powers of the federal government? Bernie Sanders!
Starting movements. My staff at every level of my public work and continue to do to this day. I actually think organizing, mobilizing, starting movements starts with a story. And you can't create a story that moves large numbers of people unless you are able to listen and hear to the story of the person next to you. The story of your neighbors, the stories of your coworkers, the stories of your community, the story of people who are not like you. And so one of the things that I think is important is for us to learn how to listen to each other and learn how it is that we came to be who we are, think the way we do, because that understanding of other people's stories is how you end up ultimately forging bonds and creating the glue that creates movements.
You have to say, when we got into philanthropy and particularly studied global health, we were stunned at the progress. We'd had no idea. And it's kind of amazing if you ask even very well-educated people, what's happened with vaccination, what's happened with HIV. They don't know the positive story. What's happened with vaccination, what's happened with HIV. What's happened with vaccination, what's happened with HIV. What's happened with vaccination, what's happened with HIV.
Protect you from getting HIV is something we've always believed in. Initially, we were involved in a daily set of pills, but in Africa it didn't get very big uptake because women said it looks like maybe I have HIV. Because women said it looks like maybe I have HIV. Because women said it looks like maybe I have HIV. So we've been working on something that you could take less often. Lenacapavir is an injection taken only twice a year. It's discreet, and it provides strong protection against HIV. With it, we could substantially reduce the number of people getting HIV. Inexpensive. The HIV epidemic reached its peak in the late 1990s. And since then, by making available the drugs that not only reduce infections, the number of those infections per year is down by over 80%. There is more work that needs to happen, but there has been real progress on HIV in Africa.
Agriculture is very important in Zambia because it is the main source of income for the majority of the people in the country. I work as a research officer in plant.
kill hunger. If I had a magic wand, I'd use it to get rid of malnutrition. It's the greatest health inequity in the world, affecting 2 in every 3 children. But the good news is there's a lot we can do. We already have a number of innovations that we know work well. If the world commits to deliver those solutions, we can make this incredible contribution on reducing malnourishment and improving children's lives.
I don't see a throne on your head, right? You're not King Bill.
All right, you got me on that one.
I don't see a throne on your head, right? You're not King Bill.
All right, you got me on that one.
Text me, don't email me.
What's wrong with email?
No one uses email for personal communications.
40 years ago we did
40
that.
years ago, I'm sure that they did. Not this year and never, ever, ever in the future.
So Bill Gates, you've been on this tech rocket ship for quite some time. In the 70s and 80s, and even before, you were bringing us computers. And then in the 90s, we had the internet. And now, I'm just wondering how you think this AI moment stacks up to where we've been, to where we are right now.
Well, AI is going to have more impact than even the personal computer, the phone, the internet. In fact, it builds on those things in this phenomenal way. But this is the biggest technical advance in my lifetime. The HIV epidemic throughout sub-Saharan Africa has made amazing progress. Sub-Saharan Africa has made amazing progress in education. Primary schools now pretty much universal. And we've also seen increases in the secondary and upper secondary. More to do, but education has truly made real progress in Africa.
Third world is not poor. You don't go to poor countries to make money. There are very few poor countries in this world. Most countries are rich. The Philippines are rich. Brazil is rich. Mexico is rich. Chile is rich. Only the people are poor. But there's billions to be made there, to be carved out and to be taken. There's been billions for 400 years. The capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken the timber, the flax, the hemp, the cocoa, the rum, the tin, the copper, the iron, the rubber, the bauxite, the slaves, and the cheap labor. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped, they're overexploited.
The quiet coup. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. The machine, the Dominion Syndicate, a coalition of the world's most powerful billionaires, built their powerful empire through decades of quiet, calculated moves. They didn't march into power. They invited the world to hand it over. Here's how they did it. Step 1, control the narrative. He who controls the mind controls the media, and the media manipulates the mind. The machine began by consolidating all media. Corporations, ownership. They masked this as a push for efficiency and globalized information. Sharing fake diversity news outlets maintain the illusion of competition, while suddenly pushing the same narratives. Algorithmic manipulation, social media platforms as fake
The only
news
dictator on the
or
rise.
conspiracy theory.
Under the new rules provided by the COVID-19 emergency, many other elected leaders were empowered to show their true colors. Interesting how they all marched in perfect lockstep while chanting the same slogans.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity.
Here we are now with an economy in crisis, but with an incredible opportunity.
It's certainly a major crisis, but it also offers us a unique opportunity.
Unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset.
The great opportunity for reset.
Opportunity for us to reset.
For a reset.
It's almost as if they all attended the same school of thought and studied under the same professor.
Some people would say this revolution is characterized by the fight of robots against human beings. And we will win this fight.
Professor Klaus Schwab was born in 1938 in Ravensburg, Germany, where Nazi crimes against humanity were committed. His father, Eugene Wilhelm Schwab, was the managing director of Escher Weiss Ravensburg, a company that used slave labor to manufacture weapons of war for the Third Reich. While Klaus, his father, was at the helm, the Nazi Party awarded Escher Weiss Ravensburg. Today, Klaus Schwab is the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum.
If you'd like to meet the people who are supposed to repair the state of the world, or give a piece of your mind to the bankers who helped get us into this mess, we can tell you where to find a lot of them. The World Economic Forum.
Founded in 1971, the World Economic Forum is an international private organization which receives billions of tax-free dollars from its members and their global enterprises. Every year, the WEF brings together its members with world leaders, big pharma executives, tech titans, Hollywood celebrities, media personalities, and internet influencers to meet in the secluded mountains of Davos, Switzerland.
It is a tiny town folded into the Swiss Alps, a village where you could bump into Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, the head of Google, and the Queen of Jordan. It turns out there are two Davoses, one you see and one you don't. After hours, there are hundreds of private parties where deals are done. People who can't be seen together in public can meet here.
Your Royal Highnesses, Excellencies, distinguished heads of state and government, the future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room.
Klaus Schwab, the founder of the WEF, is particularly upfront and even proud of his ability to shape and influence world politics.
I created the community of global shapers as a means, as a force to shape our common future.
And of course, their Global Young Leaders program is a grooming ground so that when they ultimately infiltrate cabinets,
We penetrate the cabinets.
they will likely tend to govern a certain way.
Nobody will be safe if not everybody is vaccinated.
The names and the countries he mentioned ended up being some of the most dystopian and authoritative during this pandemic.
Names like Ms. Merkel, Vladimir Putin, and so on.
Other names? Jacinda Ardern, Sebastian Kurz, Mauricio Macri, Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Ma, Gavin Newsom, Stéphane Bancel, Chelsea Clinton, Leonardo DiCaprio, Sanjay Gupta, Dr. Leana Wen, Alexander and Jonathan Soros, George Soros' sons, and several of the Rothschilds. And of course,
Now who could represent such a world better than you, Prime Minister?
In 2014, Klaus Schwab called for the Great Reset,
We need a great reset.
which he positioned as the solution to the world's most urgent issues.
The quiet coup. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. The machine, the Dominion Syndicate, a coalition of the world's most powerful billionaires, built their powerful empire through decades of quiet, calculated moves. They didn't march into power. They invited the world to hand it over. Here's how they did it. The quiet coup. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. The machine, the Dominion Syndicate, a coalition of the world's most powerful billionaires, built their powerful empire through decades of quiet, calculated moves. They didn't march into power. They invited the world to hand it over. Here's how they did it.
The dark reality of Schwab's agenda is detailed in his best-selling book, COVID-19.
The quiet coup. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. The machine.
Power of moving people along, even people who aren't necessarily on your bus when you start. Talk to us a little bit about how you think of movements around the world and the power of those now, and what leaders can learn from them.
Well, I'd make a couple of observations. Number one is that most big change, most human progress is driven by young people who don't know any better and figure, why can't we do something different? Old people get comfortable or cranky or protective of their status or set in their ways. There's a reason why, if you look at, for example, here in the United States, the Civil Rights Movement, the leaders of those movements were in their 20s. Dr. King was 26 when he started, 39 when he was killed. And if you canvass the world, oftentimes that is the impetus. People asking in ways that I think are familiar to many, not why not, or not why, but why not? Why do things have to be the way they are? So that's point number one, that young people, I think, can make an enormous difference. Number two is, because most of us now either live in democracies or countries that purport to be democracies, because we have won the battle of ideas that says governments and our common efforts have to be rooted in the legitimacy of people, in people being able to band together and collectively push for initiatives that are going to make change in their lives. That's something that for most of human history was unimaginable. That is one of the amazing transitions that has taken place, and you will notice that even in autocracies today, there is at least the pretense of democracy, because people believe that governments that are rooted in people are more legitimate. And that's a battle we won and now have to make real wherever we can. That's point number two. Point number three is simple math. In most places, if you want to get something done, whether it's a smarter climate change policy or health care for people or more funding for girls' education, you've got to have a majority of people supporting it. You got to have votes. You have to have the allocation of resources, and that requires mobilization and a game of addition rather than subtraction. So, and the fourth point I would make would be the internet now has turbocharged the capacity for us to develop movements in ways that we had not imagined before. Now, the last thing I'll say, so that I don't sound like I'm still in the U.S. Senate and filibustering, is I guess a smaller point, but a profound one that I tried to reinforce with my staff at every level of my public work and continue to do to this day. I actually think organizing, mobilizing the story of your neighbors, the stories of your coworkers, the stories of your community, the story of people who are not like you. And so one of the things that I think is important is for us to learn how to listen to each other and learn how it is that we came to be who we are, think the way we do, because that understanding of other people's stories is how you end up ultimately forging bonds and creating the glue that creates movements. Every great movement, you think about Gandhi in India, it started with his understanding of India's story and his own story, and seeing Indians in South Africa discriminated against, and recognizing that there were traditions and myths and a power in those stories that ended up driving out the most powerful empire on earth. It wasn't guns. And increasingly that will be the case, and certainly that will be the case if we want to move forward the sustainable development goals that we're talking about. Is we've got to be able to tell a story not only to big donors or politicians, but also to, for example, people here in the United States who may feel like, look, I've got my own problems, why should I be worrying about somebody on the other side of the world?
What he is talking about is rallying people up to fight a war that is not justified. And how will we do that? We will tell a story to divide you rather than unite you. Which brings me to how you can tell you are being manipulated. If the narrative divides you, you are being manipulated. If the message unites you, this is the correct message. For what they fear the most is for the people to stand hand in hand and unite as one band. I will show you video. You tell me if this is dividing or this is uniting.
Eventually leads to people meeting each other and talking to each other. And I think that we have not...
You think that Palestinians should just be kicked out?
To say it in nice words, kicked out, yeah, but to be in their own jail. That's it.
Jail?
In their own place, we give them food, we give them their jobs, they can live their own life. They just
But what if they escape?
They can't. There has to be a thing that they cannot escape. That's the thing. At the end of the day, if you do give an animal food, and I'm trying to talk nice here.
This entire interview was so incredibly unhinged, they're saying the quiet parts out loud. If you haven't watched this entire video, please do, because not only are they calling for the ethnic cleansing and genocide of Palestinians, saying that Israel should finish them out, but they've also said that Palestinians are animals and should be put in prisons that are essentially concentration camps. And that was them speaking nicely. Like, how does she not realize that by saying that you should put Palestinians in a certain place and make sure that they are not allowed to leave, that she's literally describing a concentration camp? What happened to never again? The way that they portray Palestinians as vile, subhuman animals when they themselves are acting like vile, subhuman animals is insane. These people are so indoctrinated and propagandized that they think saying heinous things like this is somehow perfectly okay and acceptable and normal. And knowing that this was her filtering her language and that what goes on in here is 10 times worse is horrifying, to say the least. I cannot believe that this is the world that we live in right now.
To the Euphrates. And who's on the other side of the Euphrates? The Kurds. And the Kurds are our friends. So we have the Mediterranean behind us, the Kurds in front of us, Lebanon, which really needs the umbrella of protection of Israel. And then we're going to take, I believe we're going to take Mecca, Medina, and Mount Sinai, and purify those.
Psychopathic. This Israeli government official wants to take Mecca and Medina. Why, you might ask, is built by Abraham, none other than our father Abraham.